The next thing we're going to cover is early filmmaking art, the art of filmmaking. So one of the things I want you to think about as we go through the next couple of slides is the very first time that, say, web pages came out. People didn't know what the pattern was going to be with web pages. For example, when you look at the navigation bar on a web page, you know it's going to be at the top or on the side. You're not expecting it to be in a circle in the middle. So all of those types of patterns of what we expect out of a web page had to develop through time. And that was the same thing with filmmaking. So when filmmaking first came out, there was no, sense of narrative or what are we going to do with this exactly. It was totally new, totally uncharted. So earliest filmmaking in the late 1800s were really just snippets of life. So the Lumiere brothers over in France, for example, did films of people coming out of factories or a couple feeding their baby. I'll show you some in a second. But the other thing I want to say about the Lumiere brothers is that they did the first sort of public showing of a film. They did, there's a picture of it in your textbook of a train coming towards an audience, and they set it up on a screen, and audience members really freaked out. They didn't know what to expect out of film again. And so when the train came towards them, they ran out of the way. They were afraid they were going to get hit. The Lumiere brothers charged a franc for, 1 franc for each person to get in, and 35 francs were earned that night on this film. And it had no plot line whatsoever. So let me show you one of these over here. So if we go to here, and I have these up, these links as well, so you can take a look at these things. But here's some of the things that they did. Whoops, I can't get to there we go. I can't get to the on button with the way things are going here. There we go. That should, okay, at any rate, here we go. So coming out of a factory, this would not exactly be Academy Award winning stuff now, right? But for early audiences, this was just like completely fascinating, completely mind-blowing to them. So this held their interest. It was, just astonishing to see moving pictures. I have this link up. This shows all sorts of early Lumiere brother things from factories. It just goes on and on. It's so interesting. To other scenes, and you guys can go through this later if you'd like. Here's the baby one. So these were really fascinating at the time. Let me get this queued back up. And but that wasn't a storyline, right? So next we have Georges Méliès and Méliès. I think that's second pronunciation is the way you say it, Méliès. And he was experimenting in the late 1800s, early 1900s with the art of filmmaking, of taking a shot, a sequence, taking a shot of something and then stopping the camera and setting up another shot. And why this is so important is it begins to set up a narrative when you have two unrelated shots that then begin to tell a story. And he had a flair for the dramatic. So this film, A Trip to the Moon, whoops, I already have it queued up over here. When it came out was, again, really a game changer. It moved the ball forward in terms of the art of filmmaking. Yeah, here we go. Let's just get a couple of things. So you can see much more dramatic stuff going on here. I want to see if we can get that shot with the, there we go, with the moon. It is so realistic, don't you think? Okay, that's enough of that. But this is, this is kind of, again, mind-blowing for the time period. And queued up. All right, so the next thing we get is in 1903, we get Edwin S. Porter, and he does The Great Train Robbery. And this is the first film to start using editing and intercutting of scenes, not just two scenes that are, shown in order. and a mobile camera, and it's also credited as being the first Western. So let me cut away to that. Sorry about this awkward back and forth. When I do this in a class, I'm able to click on it and it goes straight to it. But right now, I didn't want to have to wait for queuing these things up, but maybe it would have been better. Okay, so the Great Train Robbery, let me just click on any specific place in here. So the main thing is that we're seeing things develop as these guys are going along. They are creating narrative, they're creating the intercutting of scenes, all this stuff that wasn't just automatically there. Somebody kind of had to invent it for film. And again, I have the links for this, so I'll let you guys explore that further if you'd like to. And then, whoops. Okay, so this is a little bit less polished going through this as I would like, but just bear with me. Okay, so the last one I want to talk about is D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation. Now, we're going to talk about some of the business side of filmmaking in a little bit, but probably in another video, or in class. But and there's a lot of time that's passed between 1903 and 1915, a lot of things that have passed in terms of the business of the art of filmmaking. But the reason I jump ahead to this one is because this film, although incredibly racist and painful in a lot of ways to see this kind of racist material on film, is nonetheless credited as being a complete game changer for film. This film was 3 hours long. He charged $2. When we get into the business of filmmaking, you'll see why charging $2 is like a huge deal. That's like so much more money than film was being, than the cost of it at that point. There were rehearsals and an adherence to a script. There were just so many extras in this film, extra actors. There were just, a ton of people in this film. There were costumes and lighting and very dramatic close-up angles, dramatic camera angles. There were wide angles and, scene setting angles and close-ups and just all these different things. And this had not been done in film yet. So unfortunately, this film gets the credit for that. And of course, it set off a firestorm in the sense that, well, for one thing, it caused more people, it kind of revived the KKK, unfortunately, deeply unfortunately, and brought more people into that organization. At the same time, African-American filmmakers responded to this film by making films of their own that depicted African-Americans in a positive light at doing the things that they do and are proud of. So at any rate, this film, though unfortunate, did move the ball forward. So, okay, we're going to talk about the business of filmmaking in a little bit. And that is all for this one.